voices from the World Peoples Conference on Climate Change and the Rights of Mother Earth. We're broadcasting at the summit in the Bolivian town of Tiquipaya, just outside Cochabamba. Among those who spoke at the opening ceremony for the World Peoples Climate Conference was Nimo Bassi. He's the prominent Nigerian environmentalist and chair of Friends of the Earth International. By contrast, at the UN Climate Summit in Copenhagen in December, his group, along with several other mainstream environmental organizations, was barred from the talks. Democracy Now! Producer Sharif Abdel-Qaddous spoke with Nimo Bassi outside the conference gates here in Tiquipaya. He began by asking to talk about the significance of the Bolivian summit.
I'm here because this People's Summit is the most important event in the struggle against climate change. And it's been so inspiring to find people from all around the world gathered with the same objective. We don't have corporate lobby. Maybe they're hiding, but certainly they're not openly lobbying as they did in Copenhagen. So this is a really opening for a fresh breath for peoples and governments who are sensitive about the issues to talk to one another and forge a way forward.
And you were at the Copenhagen summit, the UN summit. Friends of the Earth was expelled, as were you. Now you're here. Your thoughts on the difference between the two?
The difference between the two, Copenhagen and Cochabamba, is so huge. In Copenhagen, I was kicked out, locked out a number of days. And here, you see a real sense that government wants to speak to people, wants to listen to people. In Copenhagen, this was not possible. Copenhagen was a question of secret dealings in secret rooms called green rooms, which were more like grey rooms. And there was no openness. They asked us to raise our voices, but then they muffled us. So this is the only thing that the similarity between Cochabamba and Copenhagen is that both start with letter C. And they both have 10 letters. Otherwise, the difference is so huge.
And what do you think the point of this conference is? There's no binding agreement that will come out of it, and the United States and the world's biggest polluters are not being represented here in a government forum. What do you think is the point of the conference?
Yeah, I think the point of this conference is not to come out with an agreement, the type that we fought for in Copenhagen, which did not happen. The point of this is to provide a space for the environmental justice movement, for people's movement, social movement, environmental movement, to take a step ahead of what started on the streets of Copenhagen and really organize to show that this is the real alternative, this is the real space, and the voice of the people just must be listened to.
And Africa's on the front line of climate change. How has your continent been affected by global warming?
You know, Africa is the most vulnerable continent, and what came out of Copenhagen was the Copenhagen Accord, with no binding agreement, with suggestions about emissions cuts. Governments could do whatever they want to do. From what I've heard, the analysis we got is that if Copenhagen Accord stands, we're going to have global temperature increase of more than 4 degrees, and this would mean for Africa over 4 degrees centigrade. That would mean roasting Africa, destroying African people, destroying African environment, and simply possibly just having a continent on the map with nobody in it. So Africa we have real interest in this conference to make our case and then to get people from around the world to stand together and really take the struggle of climate change.
And you just came from speaking at the main inauguration rally at the stadium. There's been some criticism of the Bolivian government, which is looking to expand oil and gas extraction, expand lithium extraction. What are your thoughts of that, the fact that Evo Morales, the president, is hosting this conference and yet continuing to extract raw materials which may hurt the environment?
You know, we love Evo Morales. We love the government of Bolivia. The positive things that the government is doing is very inspiring. But when it comes to the issue of extracting further deepening and widening extraction of fossil fuels like gas and so on, of course that's source for concern. I would believe that, like any other government, there are issues they have to struggle with. And we are going to press for leaving the oil in the soil, coal in the hole, tar sands in the sand. It doesn't matter which government, no matter how much we love the government, we'll look at the government of Bolivia in the face and say, no, this is one way you should not go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nimo Bassi is the chair of Friends of the Earth International. He was speaking yesterday at the opening of the World Peoples Conference on Climate Change and the Rights of Mother Earth. Mother Earth. In the Bolivian indigenous languages of Aymara and Quechua, it's Pachamama. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. We'll be back in a minute.